to come to Carson City and you love the arts, this is quite the place for you. We have an arts center here, and they've also got this beautiful old church across the street. One of our first churches here in Carson City, St. Teresa's Catholic Church. That church across the street has bulletproof glass in it. Not because of any sort of religious sort of politic thing. It's because the zephyr winds would blow so hard down 5th Street that they would blow out the windows in the houses and in the churches. So they put bulletproof glass in to protect their beautiful stained glass. That church was sold, and they built a Catholic church on the south side of town, and this became an art center. The Brewery Art Center was a little bit different. It was one of the first businesses here in Carson City, and because one of the first words is brewery, then you might notice that they brewed beer. Thank goodness they did, because in Carson City, in the 1870s, it wasn't very good to drink the water. There were microbes and things like that that might make you ill. What you wanted to drink was a good beer. And they made that beer here at the Brewery Art Center. There were actually tunnels that went underneath this building and connected to the different bars in town so that they could roll the kegs under, especially in extreme weather. Like 1859, 1860, the winter was so bad here. You would never know now, but no one could get over the hill. So the 700 people that were in this town were here to stay that winter. A lot of them did not make it, but those who did stayed. And they also became the founders of this town. Inside of the Brewery Art Center, they say there's a spirit, a ghost, who is a mason. If any of you know about the Masons, they like to take very good care of the buildings that they're in. Mr. Marr, who wears a yellow vest and a little round hat, likes to wander through the building. They think that he was brought back to life when they started to do construction upstairs in that old building on the beautiful ballroom. People started to see him, a man with a yellow vest that seemed very out of place, especially in the 1990s, and started to gossip about it. There was one of the gentlemen that was working upstairs who thinks he saw him in one of the old photographs on the wall. Then they started to research him. Mr. Marr was a Mason, and they think he stayed around to take care of the building, take care of the people inside of the building. If you talk to any of the theatrical people here in Carson City, they'll tell you late at night, when they're hanging lights or building a set, that they'll see someone in the booth. Same description, yellow vest, round hat. But when they go up to the booth, there's no one there. They think he's a good spirit. They've lost many of their actor thespian folks here in Carson City, and they think a lot of those spirits still remain in that building. Why? Because that's where they were happiest. And they went back or remained there. Many people die on stage, but very few actually do. There weren't any in this building, but perhaps they've come back to live out their lives on the boards. The date I said that we became a state?
1864.
1864. Who said that?
Oh, telling a story.
You earned the part. You were born in 1964, so you automatically related it.
And I'm from Nevada, so near and dear to my heart.
You're battle-born.
Yes, I am.
Yes, you are. Does anyone remember my husband's name? Abe Curry.
Abraham.
Abe Curry. Who said that? Oh, good. Do you want to come up here and get a light-up moon? Now, there is a reason I do this, too, so I can find you all. As the sun goes down. Does anyone remember any of the other names of the gentlemen who founded this town with Mr. Abraham Curry?
Green.
Mr. Musser. Very good light-up moon, my dear.
Mr. Green.
Mr. Green, excellent job. You know, you guys are now in charge, like when you're on an airplane, when people, you know, have to go and open the door. Here, get your Mr. Green right there. I don't know what's attached to that. So it's a spider. Yes. And where's our
Say it. Say it out. Say it.
Taylor, do you want to have a light up necklace?
Ooh.
Good, and then you can be in charge too. Now, I hope they work. So there's a way. Consult people who are technologically advanced on these. 1879. Many of the homes, especially the large mansions, were built in the 1870s to 1880s. But 1879 is one of the hot dates for these mansions. There was a lot of money spinning here in Carson City. Abe Curry had founded this town in 1864. He had passed away by 1879, by the way, amazingly enough. Sadly so, Abe. I hear, oh, I see you right there. Thank you. Good, good, flying over. But the sandstone that this building is made from came from Abe Curry's quarry. Abe Curry had a quarry, no, which was out on 5th Street, which then became the legislature. There was a hot springs out there, and he thought that that was like the coolest place ever. People would want to come to the hot springs, they'd want to have a resort experience, and then who was he going to bring to that? The politicians that he needed to be able to make this estate. Very smart man. He didn't need it for long because he had to come up with his own coach to bring them all out to 5th Street. It was very expensive. So he sold Abe Curry's quarry on 5th Street, which then became the prison, the Nevada State Prison, proudly so. They have tours out there now if you want to go. They had a luncheon there, actually, very strangely enough, a luncheon at the prison. But sandstone came out of that quarry, and so in all the buildings that you pass that have this lovely brick on it, this is sandstone that comes from that quarry. I tell you this for a reason. Gossip was hot here in Carson City in the 1870s. It's still a small town. If you live here, people still like to talk. I only hope they're saying something about me right now. But they talked so much about Thomas Edwards because he worked at the prison. And they say he used prison labor to build this beautiful house. Well, he didn't. I might have a little bit, but it was legal because they were there. And they were quarrying this sandstone, so of course there might have been a little labor. But Mr. Edwards had lost his wife, and he had to raise his children here. So he hired a woman named Mrs. Anderson, who was a Paiute Indian, and she was lovely. And she loved to take care of children in the house, and she did very, very well. As a matter of fact, there was a piano in the side room that looked out over the south side of town. And she'd look out at the neighbors, and she'd dust the piano off all the time. The piano has never needed dusting since the 1870s. I know, if you must live in Nevada. You know. I need dusting. Yes. It's an amazing thing. They moved the piano over to the church. Of course it needed dusting. They moved it back here. No dusting. Gene Roddenberry, who wrote Star Trek. Are there any Trekkies? Oh, good. There's some Trekkies. Excellent. Very good. Very good. Prize for you later. His daughter lived in this house, and she was a writer. And she wrote quite a bit about all of the supernatural activity that happened in this home. A lot of it was surrounding Mrs. Anderson. She had one of those wind-up swings to help take care of her children, because who doesn't want a wind-up swing? I mean, I'm going to buy you guys one and take it to 5th Street. And once the swing would stop swinging, there would be somebody actually playing with her child, making sounds, and the child would be laughing. She researched it, found Mrs. Anderson, and what a wonderful woman she was, and brought the story to us. So Mrs. Anderson, we honor you. We'll leave you before it gets dark. And thank you so much for all of your dusting.
Going on a ghost walk. Hi. Going on a ghost walk. Watch out for the ghost car. So we're going to continue on with our ghost tour, and we've stopped here at this lovely jewelry store. Now, way back when, in 1859, there was a young man who wasn't making it in the Comstock, couldn't do anything right, and decided that, you know, gold just wasn't it. So he went and he dug deeper into the mines, found diamonds. He didn't know what they were. they were just these clear rocks. So he brought it to this jeweler. He said, "What are these?" And the jeweler polishes it up. He says, "I think, my young man, you have diamonds." Well, back then they didn't know what diamonds were going to be used for. So they just put it into weird trinkets, like wine glasses and boats. Put wines on. One day someone came by and said, "Those would make very good earrings. In fact, my daughter's getting married. I bet you could put one of those white stones into a ring." And that's where the wedding ring came from. I'm going to let Madam Curry take over. So we're going to catch up with the rest of our group. And we're going to walk this way and catch up with the rest of our group so we can hear the rest. Woohoo, it wasn't last this time. You can go up there, Alan.
Okay.
She's filming, don't worry.
Was their home, and many of the houses that we pass or that are on the blue line were the governor's mansions. One that we'll pass on the way back down was an old governor's mansion that's being fixed up to bring it back to its grandeur. But this house was quite eclectic at the time. It was wonderful that it was able to be built. The Rickeys, who lived next door, owned this property. And Mr. Rickey used to like to take a lot of trips out of town. He loved recreation, but didn't like to tell his wife where he was going. And so on one of his trips out of town, Mrs. Rickey thought it would be so much fun to sell this piece of property to the state of Nevada for $10. And she did. And he arrived back home and was a little bit irritated. But he was also a hero of the town. People loved him. It was all over the newspapers that he had helped provide the new foundry for the governor's mansion. So he couldn't really argue with Mrs. Rickey, although he was pretty irritated. They built this beautiful house. The Dickersons were the first family to live here. Those are the Dickersons' dogs there. And their barks still haunt the neighborhood. The Dickersons had a baby. People say they can still hear the baby crying. That would probably be similar to having the dogs around the house. Why wouldn't that stop? They don't know. No one has passed away in the governor's mansion that they know of.
It has been said that all brides that walk and cry and leave the altar, or were left at the altar, and they walk these hollowed walkways at night screaming, "I want my diamond ring! I want my diamond ring!"